I can't even. All right, cool. Three, two, one. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Emotions and Shit with your host, Jason, and
Your girl Tay.
yeah. And today we're going to have a more serious tone. What are we going to be talking about today, Miss Del Val?
We are going to be talking about mental illness.
Ooh, I like it. I like it. Mental illness. Now, mental illness is something that a lot of people don't talk about,
hmm
especially in the Black community. We just do not talk about it. And before we get going, I'd like to say that a good friend of mine, Miss Jarita, came up with this topic. Miss Jarita McDay. She came up with this topic for us to discuss today. And like we said before, if you're a listener to us, a follower, send us ideas, send us all this stuff, and we'll talk about your topic. Anyway, back to your regularly scheduled podcast. But yes, mental illness. Why do you think mental illness is so hard for people, regular people, to discuss?
um, like a lot of things that you and I discuss, it's very multifaceted.
Mm-hmm.
One, you have and we'll probably get into a little bit of this in a second, but you have the perception that all mental anybody that's mentally ill is crazy. And that's a lot of that is perpetuated in the media, more than likely Hollywood,
Mm-hmm.
because you have movies like Split that just came out this year, and you have movies like Psycho that are classics, and they all depict somebody that has some type of psychological disorder, and they're usually a serial killer.
Yeah, I would believe so. Yeah.
Or you see somebody that's mentally ill and you associate them with an asylum or a mental hospital.
Yeah.
And you don't really see, I mean, there are certain movies like, oh goodness, what was it? There was one with Sally Field, um, where she played somebody with multiple personality disorder, which is now called dissociative identity disorder.
Yes.
And it was a sympathetic view of someone with that disorder. And but you don't see a lot of those movies.
Mm-hmm.
You may see somebody in a movie with like depression and anxiety, but even those can be problematic. So I think the way certain things are depicted, and then you have people that go on rampages, like the Aurora rampage during the Dark Knight premiere, and then you have school shooters. What do they all say in the media? This person was mentally ill. So you
Mm-hmm.
have all of these associations when a lot of times mental illness, like I just said, can just simply be depression and or anxiety. So I think because of that combination of things, it's very difficult for someone to say, I have this mental illness, or I know someone with mental illness, or, this is what it is, especially for us in the Black community, because we tend to say, oh, that's a white thing. Only white people go to therapy. Only white people do this. And it's like, no. We have those here. Like my mother has dissociative identity disorder. I grew up with a mother who has multiple personalities. So, and a lot of people wouldn't acknowledge that because they're like, that's not something Black people get. So I think that's all of that to say that's probably why a lot of people have a hard time conceptualizing it, talking about it.
Hmm. And I agree with you, especially because it's something that people honestly, if you have it, you are very afraid to say it because
Mm-hmm.
of that same reason. Like, I cannot pronounce it for the life of me. It's this, this, what is it called? It's a type of depression where basically it hits you at years at a time.
Mm-hmm.
I have that, full disclosure. And I got it super young, but I didn't tell anybody for years. I think it's around 15, 16. And it causes me to have, and it's very complicated because there are different levels to it, but basically I'll have whole weeks on end where I've just got no energy. I don't want to talk to anybody. I just in a bum mood. But
Mhm.
a lot of people with it have to find methods of coping,
Right.
methods to get on the regular world. And sometimes people like us, we overcompensate and we create a persona to where people won't ask us how we're feeling. I know that's very, very true of me. You know me.
Mhm.
Certain people know me that I can be calm and I'm collected and I can have deep conversations. But most people get the high energy, off the wall, all over the place me because that's the one that people like and don't ask how you're doing, are you okay, and things like that. I don't think I was so afraid that I was a freak because I thought I was a freak. I thought I was a freak and someone was wrong with me for years and years and years. The first person I actually told about it was Wonder Woman, and I told her about 2 years ago. So that's my first time telling somebody, besides obviously a doctor, because they've got to be one to tell you.
Right.
But no, it's terrifying. Even when I told her, and I tell her everything, I was afraid. I was freaked out. I was like, she's gonna think I'm weird. She's gonna think something wrong with me. Because in our community, it's not something that people they don't get it. They don't know what to do about it. They just tell you to get over it, power through it, be stronger, and that's not how that works.
Right.
It's really not. I know me personally, and of course I won't name any names, but I know me personally. I know a ton of Black people and otherwise that suffer from some form of depression or bipolar or mental illness, and most of them don't say anything about it. They only
Mhm.
tell me because they trust me and they know that I won't judge them for it, even though it's not something to judge about. But people do it anyway.
Right.
But it's no, they're afraid. They're scared. They don't know what to do. They don't know what to say. It's it's exhausting. It's exhausting having that burden on your shoulders and not telling anybody. Because of my best friend, I was able to actually tell people. So I don't talk to people about it. I will talk to people about it now, but still, it's something that's very taboo. Still,
Right.
it's something has to be done. You're about to say something?
Oh, well, I mean, and going back to your question of why it's so hard to talk, and I think another thing about it is I got into a conversation. Well, you're on my friend's page. You're on Facebook.
Yeah.
A couple months ago, when I had to dismiss my ex-boyfriend, who I found out was racist, I said,
Mm-hmm.
I think I said I put up 2 posts where I was like, if someone tells you that he's sociopathic and has no empathy and doesn't feel it necessary to be compassionate to others, you need to run in another direction. And I had somebody that I had only met once on my contacted me, and she told me that my language was problematic because it was ableist language, where it was like you're contributing to the negative stereotype of someone who suffers from sociopathy or psychopathy, or anything like that. And I tried to explain to her, like, the only reason I'm using this word is because that's how he described himself. He said that he doesn't have, he's antisocial, he doesn't have empathy, and all of those things. And he proved himself to be a not good person.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not saying that, anybody who's a psychopath or is a sociopath is going to be a killer or anything like that. I'm saying this person said this to me, they laid it out for me, and he proved himself to be this person. I'm not saying that all sociopaths are this, but I'm like, if this person says things to you, they're red flags. And I understand why she came to me, because that language is out there and it exists. Like, you have people who shut other people down when somebody just flippantly says, oh my God, sometimes I like heat, sometimes I like cold, I'm so bipolar. People are like, no, 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 that's not what that is. You need to stop saying that right now. And a lot of people are like, oh, but people are just being so overly sensitive, and it's the world has become too PC. I'm like, no, because, and I understand when you say something like that, you're taking away from what people who actually have bipolar disorder have to go through.
Exactly. One of my closest loved ones has that, and it's hard for her, and it's hard for people around her as well. But you have to be understanding.
Right.
How can you? It's hard to open up to people. It really is now, especially nowadays. How can you? It's hard to tell people. I remember 10 years ago, it was hard to tell people we were gay.
Mm-hmm.
Now it still is for a lot of people, but that was, you had a whole community that supported you in your decision. Now it's like it's hard to have a community of people who have mental illness that gather together, because we don't even want to tell our loved ones how we're going to talk to strangers about it.
Right.
And it's difficult, and like you say with the bipolar thing, because of the media and our culture, we've made a negative stigma with a lot of different, illnesses. Bipolar means that you could shoot up a school or something out of nowhere. Depression means you're going to, immediately kill yourself or kill other people and yourself. It's not what that means.
Right.
But that's what we've trained people to think it means.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a problem. As a community, as a culture, that's problematic because it stops conversations.
Right.
No one wants to talk about this because they don't think it's real. I still know people to this day, if you talk about a certain mental illness, their response is, well, just get over it, or, power through it. That's not how that works.
Mm-hmm.
It's a daily thing.
Like there are people, especially with like my mother's DID, there are even people in the medical community who are like, this is not a real disorder.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but I grew up with it.
Yeah.
Like I watched her since, I was 8 years old, and have her not remember things that she and I talked about. And then I think 2 years later, when I was 10, that's when she finally told me, like, this is what's been going on. And, I haven't really seen it. I haven't like seen her switch into any of her alters.
Mm-hmm.
A long time. But one of the conversations before this shit hit the fan when I was in Virginia, one of the conversations that my dad and I had, for those of you listening who don't know, my mother is terminally ill. And one of the conversations that my dad and I had was that we both believe that there's her core personality,
Mm-hmm.
and that her alters are fighting to stay alive.
Mm-hmm.
So we think that's probably why she's switching back and forth between, I don't want to go to dialysis. Yes, I do want to go to dialysis and do what I need to do to stay around for as long as I want. I mean, it could just be, survival instinct kicking in, because death is a scary thing for many, many people. But given my mom's history, we're like, that could well be it as well. But I try to say that to anybody else, and they just look at me like, what? I don't understand. Do you mean like, especially given like I said, the other example with the movie Split?
Yep.
Where you have James McAvoy, who was wonderful, and people would, I was actually going to see it and make a video about it because of growing up with it. And my husband, oh my God, listen to me.
Skipping, aren't you?
With my mother. and, friends of mine who have people in their family who have mental illnesses were like, they wanted to see the movie to see if mental illness was being treated in any sort of realistic way.
Yes.
Not to say that there haven't been people who have done bad things that have mental illnesses, but I wanted to see if it was just made fantastical, and, I don't want to say do it justice, but I wanted to see if they got the nuances of what DID is. But I didn't get a chance to see it. But I think it should be coming out soon on like Netflix or whatever. So I'll check it out then. But
I actually took somebody with me to see that movie who suffers from some variation of that, and they said, no, it's a very elegant way of putting it. It is like that, because when you watch it, you have to look at the character himself and how he deals with it, not necessarily everyone else.
Okay.
And she said, no, that's a pretty good way of expressing it. I'm gonna start using that when I tell people about it.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, there's different things like there's like, you know, anorexia, bulimia, things like that, things that are associated with different races. But it's totally a thing. One of my closest friends, I call a sister to me, she definitely had anorexia, and it's a real thing that you actually have to deal with.
Right.
And denying that it's real, it's not helping anybody.
Especially in our community when we Black women, and I mean, I know men suffer from anorexia too, and bulimia and things like that. I know maybe a couple of dudes that have eating disorders, but that's just the company I keep. But we are known for our curvier bodies. We are known for being heavier. So, and again, that's something, anorexia, bulimia, something like that, because again, European standard of beauty is being pushed in our face. People assume that Black women don't care about that.
Yeah.
So that's one of that eating disorders or a thing where it's like that's a white person's disease, because we love being overweight. We not love being overweight, but like we love our fuller figures. We created soul food. We love our ham hocks and greens, the fried chicken, and our baked macaroni and cheese. Like, what's quinoa? You know, we don't we don't subscribe to that. But the point of the matter is, we do. It's just less talked about, especially in our community, because I think one of the things is those stories, when those, especially with those disorders, when those are brought up, the after school specials and the Lifetime movies, 9 times out of 10, the protagonist is a white female.
Yes, without question. I bet money on it.
So you don't see the Black girl who has, I'll put myself out there. My mother, and I was going to make this a Facebook status, my mother would say things to me like, if you keep eating like that, you'll get as big as a house. And then would turn around and wonder why I wasn't eating my dinner.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, thankfully, I think I tried to not eat for a whole day. That didn't work. But you have people who, especially in the Black community, who don't have those supportive bases in terms of family. So there are Black women that have very low, not even just dealing with our skin tones, but just have very negative views of their own body. So you won't see on Lifetime, on the Hallmark Channel, on the Family Channel, what I think is now like Free Zone or whatever, you won't see them looking in the mirror, looking and seeing their ribs and saying, I'm still too fat.
Yeah.
Because the perception is we don't think like that. We don't go through that.
Yeah. And you couldn't be more right. And I don't know, I know why, and my mother explained to me like this: because we have that perceived notion that we have to be tougher and stronger than other people. We have to be the old expression from that movie that I think was a real quote before the movie. You have to be twice as good to get half as much.
Right.
And that's drilled into your heads. Like, I know one of the reasons I never, to this day still, never told my actual mother, or at least gone into detail about, you know, the depression thing, is because she used to tell me, she used to tell me that it was one of those things that, you know, mentally weak people had. And I thought that was like, it was very insulting, but I found out why my only way I could talk to her was I used someone else as an example to see how to gauge her. I do that all the time. When I'm talking about me, I use my friends as examples to gauge her. And I discovered that she doesn't have that actual thought process about mental illness. It's that she doesn't understand it in any capacity.
Right.
Because in talking to her, she's like, well, I actually don't know what it's about. I don't know. I know a little bit here and there. And she's very old school, so she doesn't know anything about it. And it happens all the time. Older school people and nowadays, they don't know anything about it. I went to a family reunion and I was just discussing it with my family because I do that all the time. I'm the guy who comes in there and talks about the one thing you shouldn't talk about at family. Politics, gotcha. Sex, gotcha. Religion, gotcha. And then I brought it up and they were dumbfounded. Half of them, they were dumbfounded. They know nothing about it. Because what we do is we regulate some of these things to normal status. If someone has an eating disorder where they overeat, we just say, oh, they just like to eat, or they don't eat at all. Oh, they're picky eaters,
right?
And things like that. And that's not how that works. And what hurts is a lot of people in our community, they find ways to cope. Me personally, I guess I put myself out there again. I go for walks. Whenever it hit me very hard, I felt very down, I would go for a walk. And I never told anybody. And it became a routine for me. So everyone in my family, my friends, and my neighbors said, oh, Jason just likes going on walks. Isn't that great? Oh, no. There was no exercise value that I got out of it. It was an emotional thing.
Right.
And it was something that I did every time I felt down. I was like, okay, if I do this, this is my mantra, my chanting thing. This is my Zen activity, my DDP yoga. And that's what I did. And I still to this day do that. Everyone has a coping mechanism. Sadly, my sarcasm is my coping mechanism as well.
Right.
I'm extremely sarcastic. And it helps me not deal with certain problems and emotions. And that's terrible and it's very unhealthy. And I'm trying to work on it more. This podcast, surprisingly, has helped with that a lot. I love this thing. But no, you shouldn't have to fight the fight by yourself is my biggest point. Someone needs to start the dialogue. The fact that my closest friend on this earth, it took me damn near 10 years to tell her, is unacceptable. The fact that my mother, who's probably top 5 close people in my life, to this day doesn't know. My sister doesn't know. My other close friends don't know. They're literally, I think in my life, I've told maybe 5 people. Maybe. And that's a problem.
Right.
And we have to address that. The fact that we are talking about it right now, and if we were to have any other illnesses or anything like that, we'd still, to this day, be afraid to tell people.
Oh, yeah.
And it shouldn't be like that. It shouldn't be like that. We're supposed to be a family, especially in the Black community. We're supposed to be a family together, The whole sit around, we're going to eat a Thanksgiving meal or 4th of July, pop fireworks, go to grandma's house, all that stuff. But we can't talk about this big, important issue.
Mm-hmm.
That's a problem.
It is. What rapper was it a few months ago? Was it Kid Cudi who up and said, I'm suffering from depression. I'm going to rehab to fix this. I'm going to therapy. Was that him?
It was either him or Chance. I can't remember.
I can't, but that on all of like Essence and Madame Noir and all of the Black centric websites that I visit frequently, that was the thing. And a lot of them are run by women, and they're like, this is something that needs to be talked about. And they're so thankful that, especially somebody as high profile as him, and somebody that you wouldn't think, this is a rapper who has, a major record deal, whose face is out there, who has everything that could quote unquote make somebody happy at his disposal, but he's still like, no, I'm battling with this and I'm going to deal with this in this healthy way. And you're right. That right there started a dialogue. I remember, when I started going to therapy and having people in my family going like, what do you need to go to therapy for? Because they assumed that somebody that was quote unquote depressed was, again, somebody that just needed to suck it up and get it over with.
Mm-hmm.
Or they went to the other extreme where it was somebody that like cut themselves with razor blades or, was suicidal. And they're like, well, you're not thinking about killing yourself. So what do you need to go to therapy for? And it's, again, And I understand exactly where you're coming from, where you're like, I couldn't talk to my grandmother about it.
Mm-hmm.
I would try to talk to my mom about it, thinking that she would understand because she has a mental illness. But the thing with my mom is that she can't really see past what's going on with her. So I don't know, there's something going on where she's like, but it's not happening to me, so I can't relate to it. I don't know.
I know people like that. Nothing
Right.
wrong with it. It's just that's how they operate.
So, but I went to therapy and I got my help, regardless of what other people thought, because I knew I needed it.
Yeah.
But you're right. You hit the nail on the head when you were like, we should not have to fight this fight alone. There has to be some way, and I'm glad we're talking about this, because there does have to be a dialogue. There has to be, especially in the Black community, there has to be a way for us to be able to tear down that wall so that people do feel comfortable. I mean, if they want to keep it to themselves, that's totally their prerogative. But if they're holding it in and they feel that they just have to tell somebody, that the fear will be lessened, knowing that there are people that they can turn to.
Yes, exactly. Because that I'll always remember when I did tell one woman that, everything that was going on, we were sitting in a car and I told her, I don't know how to tell you this. And when I actually told her, her response, I know her response is going to sound weird to most people, but she says, "Is that it?" And I was like, yeah. You were worried to tell me that? I was like, yeah, a lot. And she's like, no, don't be worried to tell me that. And she told me words that I won't forget. Everyone has their battles to fight, and friends are there to be your support team.
Mm-hmm.
And she leaned over and gave me a hug, and she's like, "I'll let go when you want me to let go. I don't know how these things work." And it melted my teeny tiny heart because that's all I wanted. Even if I didn't know that, that's all I wanted. I just wanted to be able to tell somebody and them not freak out.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, it's okay. And now we have regular conversations about it. Like, it's not. We literally 2 days ago, I told her, I'm having a down period, as I call it. She calls it a blue period because she likes colors. Anyway, she's a big kid, and I was having it, and she was like, "Oh man, that really sucks." And then she started talking about stuff that I really like to talk about because it would take my mind off it. And without missing a beat, she just knew what to do. And if she didn't know what to do, she'd ask me, "Hey, if I ever do anything inappropriate, just let me know, and I can kind of work around it because I want to be able to help you in any way that I can."
I
And
love that.
she's made it a lot better because I didn't have anybody, and just having that one person made a world of difference.
Yeah. Like, did you? I wish I need to look it up. There's one meme that I've seen on Facebook of quite a few times, and it's beautiful. It's somebody who I think is either depressed or anxious, and they're sitting in like a fetal position, and you have another person that comes in and says, "What's wrong?" The person huddled up says, "I don't know," and their friend is like, "Is there anything I can do?" And she says, "I don't know." They walk away, and they come back in the next panel, and he said, "I built you a blanket for it. And
Mm.
would you like to come get in it?" And she wraps herself up in the blankets. And he was like, "Is there anything else?" It's like, he's like, do you mind if I join you?" And then the last panel is both of them huddled together in the blanket for it. And I was like, that right there. Even if the person going through it doesn't know what they need, just the fact that you were there to say,
Mm.
you know, I whatever you need, I'm here, can
Yes.
make a world of difference.
Yes, it can. It can change everything. It's You're literally that friend in need in the ultimate. You're Batman of friends. That's what you are. You're Batman or Spider-Man or Superman or Iron Man of friends. You show up exactly when needed.
Mm-hmm.
And you need that. You really do. Not be. I was going to make another corny reference, but no, you need that. And look, for example, The Rock said he had depression.
Yeah.
That was big too. He
Oh
was.
yeah.
He said before he even started wrestling, it was overwhelming, and he he had a support team. He had his family. He had his friends. He had everyone there supporting him. So it made it easier for him.
Mm-hmm.
And he opened up about it. One good thing is having him as a black man, because he is black. I don't know why people don't know he's not black, but he's black.
Right.
Him talking about it makes it a lot easier because if you're talking to people, you can say, "Hey, well, The Rock is this." You can use an example. Well, The Rock has this too. He has a mental.
Right.
You can talk about it, and that's good. We're opening up dialogue, especially now. 2016/17 is the years where people are finally talking about things that they should talk about or should have talked about decades ago.
Right.
And we should take advantage of that. Now that we have that opening to open up that dialogue, we should all start talking about it. It's something that needs to be done.
Right. I think I know he's not black, but but Chris Evans suffers from severe anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
I think once he was like, that was one of the reasons he did not want to be Captain America when they first offered the role to him, because he knew he would have to do a lot of press, and you know, he's like, he's run out of just up and run out of auditions because his anxiety would kick in and he would freeze up and he's like, I can't do this, I can't do this. And for a while it hurt his career, not just because of the auditions, but because people would see him when he would do press junkets and he would seem very aloof, like he didn't care, or he would just seem kind of cold and closed off. And then when he finally said, no, I have almost crippling anxiety, and I turned to Buddhism to learn how to get a handle on it,
Mm-hmm.
people were like, oh, that explains so much. Because and I say that to illustrate that a lot of times people that you think are simply assholes could
Mm-hmm.
be going through it with their mental health. And honestly, their personalities, they have hearts of gold, but they can't show that because they either have crippling anxiety or severe depression,
Mm-hmm.
or or like you said, some people may overcompensate.
Yeah.
Like I could look at an interview with Chris and be like, I can kind of tell, I'm like, yeah, he's overcompensating right now because he's probably going through his mental process. Like, I probably seem too closed off. Let me hype it up.
Yeah. Exactly. And they try to distract you with that. They highlight a part of their personality, so you don't look at the other one.
Right. So I was kind of glad when I read that little, I think it was a Playboy interview or something. One of
Mm-hmm.
these magazines I don't normally read. Just found it online. But when he actually said that, there were all these comments like, thank you for speaking about this. It's like, I didn't know I was going through this. I didn't think someone like you would be suffering from this, because he seemed so boisterous and everything. And just the barrage of thank yous for giving a voice to and a face to severe anxiety. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's important. That's why I was so happy when, like, I'm pretty sure it was Kid Cudi when he said that he was trying to get himself together, his mental health together, and I saw the conversations that were starting there, and I'm like, I'm so grateful. And more people, I want more people to speak out, more people with that platform to speak out about it, so that people will stop and talk about it.
Yeah. True. True.
Because
Very true.
especially with and this is probably the last time I'm gonna say it, especially with people in that position, with celebrities, when
Yeah.
people are like, well, how can they be depressed? They have everything. I remember I was a big Backstreet Boys fan. And I remember when AJ McLean went to rehab for alcoholism, and people were like, and he would tell people that he was severely depressed, and the only time he felt kind of normal was when he was drunk. And
Mm.
people were like, even like DJs on my favorite radio station where we're like, he's AJ McLean, he's a Backstreet Boy, he's got millions of dollars in the bank, he can buy whatever he wants, he can go wherever he wants in the world. How the hell is he depressed? And another DJ was like, well, what happens when you can't go for a walk on a sunny day because you know you're going to be mobbed because you're AJ McLean of the Backstreet Boys?
True.
And I'm like, I need people to not dismiss actual struggle, because celebrities are just humans too.
Yeah. They're humans who are watched all the time.
Right. So I can't even imagine having that on top of struggling with the mental illness. But even for we lay people, just the pressure of having to maintain in front of family, friends, coworkers, whatever, that's enormous pressure as is.
Exactly. I only laugh because that's very, very true. And when you say that out loud, I was like, no, he's absolutely right.
But I know you know.
Oh yeah. And it's just, it's crazy. It really is. And I think we've at least brought it up. I don't want to steal all of Jarita's topic because we will have her on here when we continue this.
Yes.
And it will be glorious. Please, everyone listening here, please let us know and tell us what you think, any experiences you've had with it. Give us topics and we can discuss it with you guys. As a future heads up, because I have to do some promoting here, we in the coming weeks, we're going to have Jarita. I've mentioned her name like 50 million times in here. I don't know why.
That's just you.
And I have locked in a new guest who's actually from your state and city, Miss Haven Rain.
Okay.
And that topic will be a surprise.
Okay.
In the future, we'll have my friend Jason Jr.
Mm.
Not me. I realize. I realize with Jason Beard Jr. And of course returning Justin. So that'll be good. We've got so many topics: goofy ones, silly ones, serious ones, and insightful as always.
I can't wait. I love doing this with you.
Oh, me too. This is literally a highlight of my week. Just saying. Time for my favorite part. Since I've said my part, let's say, go ahead and say where they can find you, Miss Tay.
Okay, well, you can find me on Facebook on my Grown Geek Girl page. Oh, go ahead and plug the Facebook page right quick.
Oh, yes. Well, you can find us on Facebook now at The Comic Jaunt. Real Talk with Tay and Jay on Facebook and on Twitter. And you can listen to us on iTunes and Podbean.
I just downloaded the Podbean app today. Finally.
Yes. Yes. I've got some podcasts for you, just so you know.
Oh yeah. Okay. Okay. So yeah, you can find me on Facebook under my alternate persona, my alter ego, Grown Geek Girl. on Twitter at Grown Geek Girl. On Instagram, Miss Tay 82, MSTAYE 82. And you can find me on YouTube. I do have a YouTube channel at Grown Geek Girl.
Grown Girl, check it out, y'all. It's really, really good. Trust me. And on that note, this is the Comic Jaunt Real Talk with Tay and Jay, aka Emotions and Shit. And we'll catch you guys next time.
Take care, y'all.
Bye. Side note, before I totally